Hi, welcome to Wandering into the Woods, a podcast brought to you by the creators of Adventures with BG. I'm Linda,
And this is Jarrett.
and today we'll be talking to you about our visit to Berry Springs Park and Preserve.
It's located in one of the places we go hiking the most, Georgetown, Texas.
Yet it is somehow one of the best kept secrets in Williamson County and in Georgetown, despite the fact that Jared and I lived there for a total of 7 or 8 years together when you put our time span together in Georgetown.
Yeah.
We had never heard
Never
of it.
heard of it.
Visited it. Yeah.
Never heard of it until I Googled Wilco Parks, and it was one of the ones that came up.
Yeah, so we look forward to telling you about our experience. So Berry Springs Park and Preserve was not always a park and a preserve. It's actually been owned by 4 families since it was first bought and established by Western settlers. And in this situation, the Western settler was John Berry, who was a Kentucky frontiersman who was related to several other frontiersmen, was a man who had 3 wives throughout the course of his lifespan. And it was his first father-in-law who invited him to come over to Texas to settle lands with the Spanish government, that the Spanish government was having American settlers come and colonize with the condition that the settlers would be faithful to the Spanish government and would abide by Catholicism, etc., not have slaves, etc. All the conditions that the Spanish government was trying to impose so that they could have the loyalty of these white settlers that they did not necessarily trust, but they needed because Texas had not been successfully colonized by the Spanish before. So John Berry brought his second wife over to Texas, and they settled in what is now Berry Springs Park and Preserve. In 1846, he built a gristmill there, and Jared and I were wondering, what is a gristmill?
It's for grist.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it gristmill? Gristmill? I don't. Anyway, but it is a place where you can turn grains into flour, and apparently they've been around for centuries. And Mr. Berry learned how to do this while throughout earlier in his life, and so he thought, we don't have that many in or any in Central Texas at the time, and so what he did is he built a grist mill in Central Texas, and Native Americans and other Western settlers would come to him to turn their grains into flour. So from there, you can imagine he was a man that got along with Native Americans, with certain Native American tribes, and as well as the white American colonizers he was coming in with. And it's what I like about this park is that you see plaques and memorials that tell you about everybody's history and contribution to the area, including the ones who were there before John Berry came and quote unquote settled it. And the tribe that was there when John Berry arrived were the Tonkawas. And the Tonkawas were a tribe that liked to mostly hunt and gather because they believed that they were the descendants of wolves. And so they, like wolves, they thought that they could only hunt and gather. And so they were in the area, and they had enemies, including, I believe, the Comanche, if I remember reading the plaque correctly. And so to have allies against their enemies, they became friends with these American colonizers that were coming in, including Mr. Berry. So Mr. Berry would actually not walk around, but he would ride around on a white horse because he knew that was an easy way to stand out. And it was actually a way for the Native Americans in his area. Normally they would kill a man in a white horse because he was easy to spot, but they knew it was John Berry and that they depended on him, or that he was a good ally, so that he felt safer riding a white horse, and that's what he would do. His 3 eldest sons from his first wife went and fought in the Texas Revolution. One of them died in the Texas Revolution. And he was on the side, obviously, of the Texians and the Texan fight for independence. And following that, his other sons went on to fight in the Confederacy. So this was Mr. Berry, and he went on to have a total of 18 children with his 3 wives.
Wow.
Yeah, he has thousands of presumably more than 1,000 grandchildren and great grandchildren. And but the property didn't stay with the Berries. It did change hands through the years, but it didn't change hands as many times as you would expect. It's only changed hands 4 times. And if you visit Berry Springs Park and Preserve, like I mentioned, you can read these plaques that tell you about the history of the area in different locations. And you can also, your very first glimpse into the history of it is seeing a small graveyard of the Berry family there. And I think even Mr. John Berry's grave is there, isn't it?
I don't know whose it was. A lot of them were hard to read.
Yeah, the gravestones are so old that they're hard to read. But Mr. Berry's is actually they dedicated a new one to it.
Oh, that's who it was?
Yeah. So he's buried there, but so is his mother and others as well. So it's pretty neat. So keep in mind there's also a little family graveyard in the area. And that is the history of Berry Springs Park and Preserve in a nutshell.
So about some of the items and facilities that Berry Springs Park has, it's got camping. There's definitely primitive spots and drive-in. I don't know, they're walk-up. I don't know if they're primitive or not, but you can park and walk up to them. It's got multiple pavilions, so you can have parties or get-togethers and then, go camping after that. It also has an amphitheater. I don't know. I think that's most, fit for Boy or Girl Scouts.
Yeah, it's a pretty small amphitheater.
Yeah, but I don't know that you would just have it for a party,
Right.
Unless you have a magician, because that's the only use for an amphitheater.
Yeah, but it's available to rent as well.
There is also a fire circle or ring that looks pretty cool out by one of the primitive camping areas. There's also multiple trails. It totals a couple of miles if you were to do all of it. They kind of weave in and out, hitting the Berry Springs themselves, Berry Creek, and paralleling. Maybe no, it's the Berry Creek. It's not San Gabriel. It runs into that later at the very end of it. What else do we have? There's a playground that kids can play on. It seemed to be closed right now. I don't know that everyone was listening to that. It has real bathrooms and I believe showers there. So if you need that while you're camping, it could be a good spot for you. There are also an old barn with a donkey. Mm-hmm. So the sign says that it's cool to feed it a handful of hay, but nothing else. There's a lot of reviews online that say bring apples and carrots, but don't do that because the park doesn't want you to.
Yeah, and the sign at the park actually said there were 2 donkeys, but we only saw one. So I'm wondering, I hope the other donkey's okay. Yeah,
there may only be one donkey now. And then, so where the Berry Springs is, they've kind of got it dammed off. And there's multiple aquatic viewing areas / fishing platforms. So you're allowed to catch and release there. So there's a lot of area to look at birds, wildlife, the water, and to do a little fishing. It's
very scenic, very relaxing, a great place to meditate. Just be aware of your surroundings because not only is it beautiful for humans, but it's beautiful for nature. And Jared and I got to see some great critters, some that, you want to go up to and pet. And of course you should not because they're wild animals. But also, the not so furry kind, the ones that slither in the ground and you might want to be aware of and respectfully keep your distance from them. I'm talking about the snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that when we describe our trip.
Okay.
And then finally, in 2010, Berry Springs Park and Reserve was actually named the gem of Georgetown as far as parks go. So it's one of the good ones. And spoiler alert for our What the Haters Say section, but there wasn't a whole lot of negative reviews about it. So it seems like most people in the area love this park.
So regarding our trip there, when we first arrived, there were people visiting with the donkey. So we decided it was best not to visit the donkey right then and there. Instead, what we did, we visited an old, what was it, Jared?
Looked like the old homestead or something?
Yeah, it's an old building that's undergoing some or might be undergoing repairs in the
I don't know.
future. Yeah.
It may not be going to repairs, but it looks like it was an original house for someone. I don't know if it was Barry or that admiral that owned it last, but
Yeah.
it was someone's homestead, and we chose that because it was the closest trail to us.
I mean, it's also a cool old building, and
Yeah.
we just were attracted to those just because of how cool they are.
And you're not allowed in, so it's all fenced off.
Right.
And it says stay away.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we couldn't go in there and explore it, but it is interesting just to see, the outside of it. And we kept walking along the trail, and including to what we thought were going to be just a few little gardens, but turned out to be a small family cemetery for the Berry family.
There was like 4 graves in that one, and there was one off by itself. But, it was well taken care of and garden-like.
Right. That they're circled by a fence so that everybody respects the graves. And they're a good reminder of the original settlers of the area. And that was really somber to see. And then there's a plaque there telling a little bit the history of the place, including that admiral that I can't remember his name right now.
I can't either.
Yeah, that was one of the last to own it.
Sounds like we'll put that in the show notes if you're curious.
Maybe. And then after we did that, after seeing the family cemetery, we walked towards the pavilion area.
Playground.
Okay, so
Yeah, we walked down
you're
by the
right.
playground.
Yeah, first is the playground, and so from the cemetery to the playground, first you might walk by. There's a large outside eating area, like I don't know, just tables out there, outdoor for people to eat at for large groups. I don't know, pavilion is what you would call it.
Is it covered?
It is covered.
And it's one of the pavilions.
Yeah, and then you walk by the restrooms. And then you walk by the playground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The playgrounds are on the same side of the road as you, and then when you cross over, there's the restrooms.
Yeah. And currently the playgrounds are closed because of COVID-19, but they look like they would make a great fun spot to play at.
Yeah. They're not giant though, so
Yeah. They're for little kids.
they are.
Yeah.
But it's just not a huge playscape,
Yeah. But it looks like it would make a great setting for a small birthday party for a family.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And then, so we walked down. There's actually a bridge over what people call the lake there. So you can cross back and forth over that to hit the other side of the trail. We just took a small look at that to see what it was like. I guess the water level's a little low, or it's that time of year where there's algae. So there's quite a bit of algae, or more colloquially known pond scum. Then we went down further towards the fishing platform where there were people at. But we took a look around there. Linda started reading about the mill, and I took some pictures because the sun was setting.
Yeah, it's a very zen area, very peaceful. There's a lot of wildflowers out there too, and so you get to see some beautiful dragonflies and other
and there's
insects flying
there's little
around.
plaques around that tell you all about the local vegetation. So
Right.
you can learn about the plants.
Such as dewberries. I'd never.
Yeah, dewberries, that's a thing.
Yeah.
They make great cobbler. So if anyone wanted to know, it's one of my favorites. If you're
But what's
to
the
make me
danger?
some cobbler.
What's the danger with dewberries, Jared?
Snakes or spiders like to live in them because probably other animals are coming over. Animals and insects are coming over to get delicious berries. And
Yeah.
they get eaten that way. But I wouldn't mind it if you made me a dewberry cobbler. But while we were walking in the grass next to where the old mill had been, we actually saw a snake.
Yeah, I was distracted by. We were distracted by first a duck, and then
You were looking at all the ducks.
and then what was it? The other bird?
I don't know, maybe a heron.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'd seen the heron yet.
Okay. Well, it must have been while I was looking at the duck, and then trying to get a better view of the duck, and as we were walking.
No, it must have been after the heron because
Okay.
we were like, let's get back on the trail now.
Yeah.
So we were trying to take a picture of a heron. He was posing, or she was posing for us. And as we were coming back to the trail, we
Yeah.
saw a snake. It scurried away a little bit and then just watched us, but, wasn't aggressive.
Yeah,
We kept our
fortunately
distance.
for me, because I had missed it at first, and Jared said, "Watch out for the snake," and I turned to my right. Oh my God, there's a snake.
You were plenty far away. You were like 10 feet away.
I felt like I was close to
I'm
it,
sure.
Jared. And it had like a black top and a yellow bottom. So I don't know what kind of snake that was.
And then after, we got away from the snake, we circled around the lake itself on where the dam is. So they've dammed off the springs area to make this little, pond, lake. We circled back around on the other side, and we stopped to look at actual Berry Springs. It's a neat area. You can actually see a little bit of water flowing out of it. They have a small run/tiny waterfall, probably depending on the water level. And there's a little viewing platform there. I actually saw some fish in there. So there are fish. I guess people, were actually catching things and releasing them back.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do per park rules. So yay.
But not always do you see the fish, but they were out there. Then we kept going around. We actually completed that trail, and right as we were finishing up, there was just a deer.
And that was just like a mile, right? That first trail?
It was about a mile.
Yeah.
If you just walk completely around the lake, it's about a mile. But on the last curve, there was just a deer laying in between some tall grass and fresh mowed grass, just chowing down. Yeah, he was just eating, watching us. It's kind of a weird experience. I'm used to deers like seeing you and standing there and trying to be still, but seeing him in a laying position was kind of odd.
Yeah, hopefully he was okay, or she.
Yeah, probably a she. So we circled around. We only walked a mile. We decided, hey, we should walk more than this. So we took the same way we walked the first time around by the playground and the pavilion, and walked towards Berry Springs, like where the road is that you come in on, County Road 152. So we took that around on the boardwalk, and then what did we see around there?
You saw more deer, remember?
That was on the very way back, but did we see anything? No, just a lot of the placards for the interpretive signs for the plants. So we learned about some plants. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a very, you hear the water running through the creek. You hear the ducks, the frogs.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of frogs down at Berry Creek.
Yeah.
And so in summer, we couldn't actually see Berry Creek from the trail because there's so much grown up right now. And I'm sure that area stays lush because the springs feed that and doesn't get dry.
Right.
So we got there. There's a little fence that lets you go into where you could go to Berry Springs, but there's a gate that's the end of the property. So it's locked. So I don't think they want you hopping over, but there's clearly a trail or people have been doing it. So I don't know how you feel about that, but you could go down to a section if you wanted, but there may be easier ways going back the other way to get down to the river. After that, we circled back and we saw, a herd of deer. There's probably 10 of them just walking around in the open until we got close enough. And then they head back towards the lake. And it was, twilight or dusk by this time.
Right. And that's something else that's really neat about the park. It's open till 10.
Yep, 10 at night. And they do have some lights, so it's not completely dark on some areas of the trail.
Yeah.
So we finished up and on the concrete trail, that's what it's called. And it is just a big sidewalk, and it's through that. We didn't mention it earlier, but there is a lot of pecans out there because that's what it was. It was a pecans area. So I think that one of the plaques or things we read said they planted over 1,000 pecan trees at one point. I may be lying about that and over-exaggerating.
Well, and they were native to the area too. So
yeah, but they specifically planted a bunch. And so it's just a big open fields where it seems like it'd be great for kids to run or to play some sort of game. We followed up on the concrete trail. When you get near the parking area, they have a whole bunch of different animal tracks. So some birds, some things like raccoons and stuff.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, so they're not real. Someone placed them, but if you're
I
into...
hope they're real.
They're not. But if you're into, learning what different tracks are, it could be educational to show your kids this is this bird and this is a raccoon and things like that. And then so we made it back to our car. We went to the donkey at this point.
Right.
But it looks like someone had already pinned him up.
Yeah. He was, but I guess they're so used to humans giving them treats. As soon as you get near the donkey, it starts making noises.
Very vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It wanted us to approach it probably with some treats.
Probably. So we saw that we couldn't hang out and see how he was doing. So, we got in our car and we headed out, and that was that trip for Berry Springs. There's more trails than we actually did. I want to say there's around 3 miles or so if you were to do everything. And we did about 2 with our walk with some, walking down the same area but you could make it a lot longer if you needed to.
Yeah, and it was really nice evening walk.
Yeah. And for our next segment, it's What the Haters Say.
And so we had a hard time, like as we mentioned earlier, finding any relevant bad reviews of Berry Springs Park and Preserve.
No one was upset about there being snakes or bugs.
Right.
Oddly enough, it seems to be like every review we've ever seen, someone complained about something with nature.
Maybe we're the first to see a snake out there.
I cannot believe that.
Anyway, there was one by a local guide on Google, Lance Bressman. He said, "The park is beautiful, a true little slice of heaven. However, do not trust your camping fee with the park staff for your night stay. They will make you pay twice. Make sure you get receipt for every night." Was 5 stars, but he only gave 3 out of 5 stars in his review. Also, keep in mind, this was 4 years ago.
And then for another review, we've got a 1 star with the very long explanation of what went wrong of Terrible Park. They did a
novel,
whole novel on why it was so bad. So we know they didn't like it. Don't know why, don't know what happened, but it was absolutely terrible.
Right. We just have no idea why.
Yeah, something went wrong.
And obviously we disagree with this person. I mean, if anything was bad, that anything was descriptive, it seemed to be maybe issues with staff and probably years ago. So
yeah. And I don't know. It's like a county park, so I don't know where your expectations are when you're going to a county park.
Right.
It's not what I think. Like, this is going to be the best and latest and greatest.
Yeah. And as always, make sure that you're kind to people. You don't know what they're going through, especially people at the county level, state level. They're trying to do a lot with less, constantly with budget cuts, etc. So, don't
with
be a
camp hosts. I'm sure they don't get paid, or they just get to live there for free, and that's what a camp host is. So it's not like they're just out there doing their thing and living for free and trying to do, I guess, the best job they can.
Yeah. So just be nice and keep your receipts. Well, this has been our brief overview and summary of our visit to Berry Springs Park and Preserve. We hope that we have given you enough of an overview to encourage you to take a visit there with your family and or friends, or even by yourself. Just, take it as a nice chance to go and meditate by yourself one day or one evening, one morning is when I would recommend, especially during the Texas summer. If you'd like to see pictures of this adventure, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Adventures with BG. Those are the letters B and G. We are also at Facebook at Adventures with BG. And we also have our website, adventureswithbg.com, in which you can take the opportunity to go on other adventures and see where we've been throughout the last couple of years.
Also, don't forget to subscribe. That'd be really neat. It helps us grow our brand and make sure that you listen to us as we release new episodes. Go ahead and keep listening on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. That'd be really cool, and it helps us grow and more people can find us.
And as always, stay safe as you wander into the woods.